and we are back with another episode of the Watch and Cut channel. Now, today I just kind of wanted to do a knife video and really discuss some of my favorite small custom knives. As a matter of fact, these are probably my go-tos right here when it comes to a small custom pocket knife. Now, why would anybody want a small custom knife?
I don't know.
There's a couple things that people don't realize until you start really getting into them. The first thing being is that small custom knives do not cost any less because of their size. And this throws people off quite a bit. I see people on the Facebook groups and just chatting with people. It just boggles their mind that just a small little custom like this can be $1,100 to build. So that is kind of one of those things where somebody spends $1,100, they're going to want something maybe a little bit more substantial in the pocket or something of that nature. Now, I get that, and I totally can appreciate that, but there are actually occasions where these, I think, really shine. And I've just kind of become a hobbyist over the years here and there of collecting some of the more compact custom knives, because the main reason why I really like these smaller fancy custom knives is because these are a lot easier for me to share with coworkers, with friends, things of that nature. These are a lot less scary to pull out of the pocket and, use them on something. Now, there are people that might still look at something like this and find it incredibly menacing.
That's awful.
And those people are those people. So just be aware of your surroundings and where you pull your blades out and make these obnoxious, really like crazy clicking noises when you open them up, because you never know who might kind of find that offensive. Me personally, I would just laugh at those things, but I can't speak on the behalf of everybody. So consider this your warning label. But small custom knives just have a really warm place in my heart. And I think over the years that small custom knives don't get as much love as more the moderately sized blades. Now, over the years, I have seen a huge development in, smaller knives becoming a little bit more popular, because let's be real, in an everyday setting, depending on what you do. I mean, I'm not speaking to those who are cowboys for a living.
I'm a cowboy. This is my truck. My cowboy truck.
But on the day-to-day basis, office worker, blue collar, white collar, American, European, London office worker, any of that nature, maybe somebody that works in the kitchen, something of that nature as well. All kinds of walks of life can just really, you just don't know who's into pocket knives nowadays, is all really what I'm saying. There is doctors, lawyers, car guys, all kinds of people just gathering together and sharing the love for these really cool, sharp objects.
You tell me it's all in my head?
So to that kind of a respect, I almost feel like this is, knife collecting. This is not really buying a blade to really, one thing that does it all. And in my fair opinion about knives, there is no knife that does everything.
It's all in your head.
But I do find a lot of use in carrying something of this size, something in the 3 inch and below that. Originally I wanted to do this as a top 5, but honestly, I don't really have a top anything. I buy all my knives because each and every one of them has just a really unique characteristic about them that, on that particular day, I'm going to want something like this. Now, I like this knife. This is a Trevor Burger. It's the thicker version. Dang it, it's the EXK. Let's just call it the EXK Fat Edition. But yeah, there's the standard EXK is a bit thinner, and he makes them a bit thicker as well. And this is one of the thicker EXK models. Now, I jumped on this one because this is a relatively small knife. And the fact that he actually kind of gave it more width makes it just a much more manageable blade in my hand. Now, this amount of blade is pretty much all I'm going to need for the day-to-day chores. It's made of titanium things, which is durable. You got carbon fiber on this side, and you got just a really nice, impressive inlay of mammoth tooth, which is stuff that is mind-boggling ages old, I mean, you're talking about the ice ages. So it's kind of cool to have on one of your pocket knives, having something fossilized, a natural material mixed with a little bit of modern, and done in a pretty much, I gotta say, Trevor Burger always does it in a seamless manner. His new models now, he's moved on from these to some other really attractive models, but look fairly similar to this. And he's worth checking out if you're into kind of like the kind of small custom knives. And as far as front flippers go, this is not a knife that I think is for everybody, just because I think front flippers are a little bit more difficult for the average person. But the way that he really tunes his detent on the lighter side, and you got just really nice traction, this thing is just really like kind of effortless to open and close. So I really like the Trevor Burger EXK. He makes them a little bit longer too. Go check him out. He makes all kinds of versions of cool blades, but I recommend this if you're looking for something more compact, but on the custom side of things, right? And again, natural materials, especially fossil stuff, I just find super cool. So let's get this guy out of the way. The next one here on the lineup is a McNeese Tangent. Now, I bought this on the secondary market, and the original owner actually reached out to me and mentioned that used to be his. And pretty cool knife. So I guess I'm the third owner, I believe. And, superconductor has just been one of those materials where I'm a sucker for it. I've always loved it. It's kind of like copper, but this particular one right here that he used, this just does not corrode like standard copper. This is really high grade superconductor niobium. And this is a little McNeese custom Tangent. I think it's quite a bit old, from a few years back. You can see a little milling on the relief cut there. Simple little custom that is really quite cool. Another thing that I don't know if it came from the maker or somebody who owned it prior, but there is actually a thumb stud that protrudes on this side, which actually allows you to spidey flick it really easily. So I don't know if that was on purpose, if that was done by the maker or not, or whatnot. It's got that good old CPM 154. But this is another knife that I really don't mind just digging into packages and enjoying and carrying around and passing to an office worker if he needs to cut something with it. So that is a McNeese Tangent. Very cool little knife. Great kind of little more overbuilt, chunky, custom pocket blade for those who like something a little bit more robust. And that's not always the case, but that is what I like that one for. The next one is probably the first knife of my collection where I got into the small custom knife kind of idea. And this is a busker I've had since I think 2016, or something of that nature. Used to look different. I've redone it, and it's all been redone actually by Olamic. So this is all Olamic's work right here. But you can see it's got a beautiful Timascus clip that's all 3D milled. And then you got these Timascus pivot colors on both sides, as it should be, which is really nice. And then you got these inserts right here, which are also Timascus inlays. Now I had them do all the hardware in gold, and then you got this matching gold backspacer in a gear pattern, which I thought goes really nice with the rest of the whole scheme. So this is a really cool little pocket knife. It's very comfortable because of the curvature of the handle, and it's got a lot of thumb rest. So it's really no fatigue using this guy. And you got your little forward finger choil positioning integrated right here, which I really find nice. This knife was just designed really to be able to open in a multitude of ways. Spidey flicking is what I like best, but it is a front flipper. You can see more of a pronounced front flipping tab compared to the one I showed prior here, which gives it a nice ledge. But if you go too much on the corner, it can make your finger a little bit raw. And then just to give the whole thing a lot of pop, they do this frost finish, which I thought was appropriate on a blue anodized knife with some gold. I think the whole thing matched up beautifully. So this is one of my little pride and joys from Olamic. Highly recommend the busker. It comes in a bunch of different blades. You can even get one with like a little hook bill, recurve. You can get, yeah, they have different blade shapes. So check out the busker. This is a great option if you're looking for something a little bit on the smaller size and kind of on the custom end of things. So there you have it. I'm going to kind of go to this one next because this is still kind of more compact. We're getting to the larger stuff right here. This is actually a knife by Michael Ziba and in collaboration with Jason Knight, which is a former Forged in Fire judge. Kind of on the early episodes, he's an ABS master bladesmith, and really his signature thing in the knife world, not just Forge and Fire, but in the knife world is he's a bladesmith, but he's also really renowned for this kind of kukri blade shape that he does. And he's always established these huge fullers in it. That's kind of Jason Knight's signature, if you will. And you'll see it in a lot of his customs. But him and Michael Ziba got together and made a custom S5 is what they call it, or Southern Star as well as they call it as well. It's a flipper design, but it's kind of like a folding kukri, if you will. And I think out of all the folding kukris that have been on the market, and there's been a few, production and whatnot, but I think this is really the coolest one of them all. Now, in the full size is probably what I prefer, but I wanted a small one to go with the full size one. And this one has the Dragon Scale Damascus, which is a Rietveld invention. A knife maker from South Africa came up with this. And I believe it's just really like ball bearings that are kind of crushed down. And then you kind of do a heat salt chemical process to get this blue and purple hue out of it. You can treat it and make it black. You can make it polished. You can do all kinds of stuff with it. But the dragon skin bluing and purpling seems to be what's most popular with it. So kind of cool. I know Michael Ziba extremely expressed how much he disliked working with this stuff. But I did get one of his. I think he made like about 10 of these little ones right here in this dragon skin Damascus. So I did acquire one of these from him. Now, in the small version of the S5, you can get these in a relatively great price, and it is a full titanium construction, but it's kind of really well contoured, kind of like a fixed blade in the hand, if you will. So that's one attribute I really like about it. And even in the small version, I can kind of squeeze a full 5-finger purchase, and my thumb lands exactly where it's supposed to for nice downward pressure. So I really like this knife as well, for kind of a small custom option. Now, despite its handle thickness, it does have pocketing on the inside. Kind of wrong lighting for that, but take my word for it, there is pocketing in there on both sides. And so you also got this really cool set of skulls that are kind of in this brass color, but I believe it's titanium. And then inside you got the message Memento Mori, which basically means in Latin, it's a saying that a lot of soldiers used to say, which reminds you of your mortality. You know, remember, you're not invincible. So that's kind of one of those really cool things. Michael Ziba is a really interesting maker. He does have a lot of really interesting views on things and lives, and spent a lot of time talking with Mike and consider him a good friend. And yeah, he's just a really interesting, cool knife maker that really has his own kind of signature when it comes to knife making. So I really recommend you guys go check him out. He's got a couple other small knives like a slip joint, and then he's got the also, which would have been a memorable mention, the Manhattan Special, which is a really like thin pen-like knife, which I do have one actually. I just didn't bring it out. That's another really kind of neat small knife. Now, didn't make it to the table because I thought it was just too ridiculously small, and for maintenance and things like that, it's just not really what I think is a viable knife per se. But this S5 Mini is a great option for a really cool, custom, unique little carry. So now I'm going to get to some of the larger stuff here. Let me bring out this guy here. And this is a really cool custom knife that I acquired from a friend on the secondary quite a few years ago. This is a JD Van Deventer pinstripe. This is a South African custom knife maker. And you got these beautiful, kind of nicely rounded Damascus bolsters on both sides. And it's got just a little bit more of a purple hue. I should have kind of cleaned this a little bit, but I do carry and cut and use this thing because it's got such a slim and sexy blade. I really like the grind on this one. It's just a really nice blade that's just been kind of, you know, elongated and miniaturized. It runs on IKBS, so the action is, you know, ridiculous. The flipper is set in a very comfortable position where you can rest your hands on both sides. It's comfortable liner lock. The liners have been anodized blue, and you got this cracked ice finish on this clip, which he does actually quite a while. You can see other makers like Todd Begg and I think, well, both Begg brothers use this kind of ice finish and made it really popular. But there's other makers out there that do it as well. And JD's actually been doing this, especially on clips, for quite a while. So really cool knife, the pinstripe. These are actually really reasonably priced. Even on the secondary, if you can find them. These might be a little bit trickier to find on the secondary, but if you keep an eye on the South African custom knife stores, and there's a few. There's a great one in Seattle called Blade Gallery, which I bought quite a few knives from. There's other, you're just gonna have to research a little bit, but they're out there. This is a great option, and they think they start around like $450 for more like conventional type builds. This one was a little bit more, obviously. You have actually legit Westinghouse micarta, and the way he contoured it, he left a lot of the caramel on the back here, which I think is really quite cool. He even matched it up on both sides nicely. It's kind of have like a flan color, which is my favorite when it comes to Westinghouse. So for people who know, or if you go to a knife gathering, this is a really cool little small compact knife to have with you. It's impressive to the ones who know. And it's also just a really nice little cutting tool. So next one here I'm going to grab is one that I actually really like to carry this one quite often. Now this one isn't quite as easy on the closing but deployment thumb stud, very simple kind of style thumb stud. This one runs on washers, so it's just a different kind of action, but it's also a button lock. Now this is a knife maker that's been around for ages. This is a William Henry Studios B12, and this is kind of a custom. They do really nothing but customs for the most part, and they do them in different materials and different runs. And each and every one of their knives is all hand assembled, and everything's, you can see all the little kind of detail file work that's been done on the button. I mean, these are all done by hand, guys, and William Henry Studios is a very well-known brand, so I'll talk about them more probably when I review this B12. But the problem with this knife company for me, because I've been I've been staring at these for almost literally 4 or 5 years before I even bought one, was because they were kind of overdressed for me. There was crazy Damascus that they use, mokume with fossils on the inlays and just crazy jeweling and everything. And it was just, for the most part, too much for me. But then Triple Aught Design for a short time did a collaboration with them where they did 100 pieces and 50 pieces, and 50 of them came in, or 25 of them, God, I can't do my math today. 25 of them came in this green, OD green micarta version, and then the other 25 came in a more natural yellow canvas micarta. So yeah, I snagged one of these because I felt like this was a little tiny bit more my speed, a little bit more plain, but just everything about this knife screams classy older gentleman. This is not a knife for, kids are not gonna really appreciate a nice thin knife like this. This is not a knife you can really just beat the hell out of and whack. This is more for precision and finesse, and you can tell that by the nice thin blade grind. Now this was kind of designed to be the gentleman's knife that you keep around for years, and they didn't really want you to have to resharpen it a lot. There's the Triple Aught Design logo right there. So what they did is they made the blade in Sanmai, which they do this kind of Sanmai and a bunch of others quite often, but this is a ZDP 189 in the core. I'm not sure what the jacket steel is, but I know the core is 67 HRC, and you can actually see that printed in there. But yeah, 67 HRC core ZDP Sanmai. And now ZDP, you can already see two different colors between the steels, and that's because ZDP is not quite as stainless as whatever they have on the outside, and that's basically the idea of it. It's to keep it the blade as stainless as possible, but still getting to use the hardcore, maybe more high carbon content steels. It's a Japanese steel. It's fantastic. You can definitely look it up if you're more interested. This one is a button lock, so pushing it down lightly, it will fold and, close over easy. And you can, flick it out quick and whatnot. It does have a forward finger choil. It's just a really elegant, kind of a little bit larger, more practical knife for me. As a matter of fact, I think for an office carry, I think this is premium as far as the thickness is, well, it's thin as all goodness. And then as far as just a little tiny bit of jeweling with the smoke quartz. The only thing about this knife is it did come off center. You can make it drop shut if you can push the button deep enough with your nail maybe, but my nails are cut, so I can't. So I did have to fix the off-centering, which I kind of did. It's a bit weird, like one of these pivot bolts is kind of pressed in there. So it's kind of a weird operation, kind of centering it. It wasn't really intended to be taken apart on one side. So, but I did take care of it so that the blade doesn't rub. And yeah, every time I take this out, it just seems to be a knife that a lot of people like to gravitate towards. Now, the last one. The last one is just something that I find really fun as well. Now, this is a knife, I'm not sure if Millet makes it anymore. This is a Millet Torrent. And I got this knife on the secondary market for a really screaming deal, actually. This particular Torrent, it's a one-off. So only one of these was made in this likeness, but they did make a lot of different customs. But Millet is one of those US in-house kind of make it all there at the shop on their own with their own CNC machines and everything. And they've done quite a few cool knives over the years. As a matter of fact, the Caswell morphing karambit is a great example of that, although unfortunately I think we know it more as the CRKT Provoke. But I actually own the custom version of that, the legit Caswell morphing karambit, and I bought that way before I even knew or anybody knew that the CRKT was going to exist. So the morphing karambit is another thing that was kind of a production marvel done by Millet Knives. Now, this is a Millet as far as what the branding of this one is, but they do OEM for other makers. And they're just, again, they're USA made, all in-house, their own CNC stuff. And they kept a relatively decent price doing so. I think this knife many, many years ago, though, was about $1,100 new from Millet. Now, this one's got some complex construction, a lot of milling on the outside just to kind of give you this really kind of cool reflective surface, kind of a three-dimension kind of deal here with some really nice milling done as well. And you can see this is a two-stage anodization process. You can see the purples versus the blues. Really kind of cool, almost like a chameleon kind of effect to it. It is a stainless steel outer bar right here, but it is a mostly titanium construction knife. Now, steel was a really good idea to use back here. Titanium would have been nice too, but you just wouldn't get the shine that lasts quite as long. Although that does add quite a bit of heft to the knife. You can see actually the amount of steel on the liner here. And then you got your titanium backspacer with a little bit of traction on the back. And then you got your lock side really showing off as one big piece of high-grade Damascus. And you can tell by the coloring and the patterns that this is really nice high-grade stuff. And it's also cut, but all the way through, so you can see your Damascus blade on the inside. As a matter of fact, this is not Damascus, it's Damasteel. This is the rose pattern Damasteel, which is probably one of their less popular ones. Although back in the day, rose pattern was kind of like the thing. But I think now people prefer raindrop or ladder pattern more. But it came with the knife, and I think it looks absolutely stunning. You got this fuller that's cut out right here with just a little sliver left on the inside for a little bit of design-esque, which kind of just, you know, flows with the rest of the milling. So I think overall this knife was just absolutely perfectly executed. Everything thought out on bearings, great action, a little bit more sizable, but still extremely acceptable for the office. Now, if you can find one of these on the secondary, I think you'll find them for a reasonable price, and they are out there. But overall, that's kind of my whole thought and outlook on small custom knives. And these are the ones that I kind of tend to go to when I have an occasion for a smaller custom knife. And some of it, of course, is due to the aesthetics, because I do love the materials on a lot of these. Some of these are eye-catching, and I think that sparks up a fun conversation a lot of times just based on that. So small custom knives deserve more love, guys. And I think if you don't have a small custom knife in your collection, I think it's time to add one. Well, that being said, guys, this has been the Watch and Cut channel on small custom knives. And we'll see you guys all on the next one. This is the Watch and Cut channel, out.